Well, my name's Aaron Brock. I'm the director for Missoula Food Bank. This is the second in our Food for Thought series, so thank you guys for coming. I'm really excited to have Bonnie with us to talk about local food. Before I turn it over to her, I'm going to take a few minutes and walk through the work of Missoula Food Bank. And I want to tell you that if I seem excited, it's because in the last 10 minutes, I've had a couple of phone conversations and it looks like we're going to close on what will be the future home for Missoula Food Bank tomorrow. So, pretty exciting. This is our current site on South 3rd Street, and if you haven't been in there, you know that we run, or if you have been in there, you know that we run a client choice model. We're set up like a small free grocery store. People come to the food bank, they fill out a short intake survey. We ask about their living situation, their income, who's in the household, what the ages of people are, but there's no criteria. The best judge of whether or not you need emergency food is you. And so I tell people, and I sort of joke, but if Warren Buffett walks through our doors this afternoon, Mr. Buffett is welcome to get some food. I want to hit some numbers here. In 2014, we did not see Warren Buffett, but we did see 17,583 of our neighbors in Missoula. Oh, I'm being told to go back to the microphone. And they combined to use the food bank almost 100,000 times. I want to focus on that top number just a little bit. You think about Missoula as having just over 100,000 people in it per the last census. What this means is that 1 in every 6 people who call this county home is coming through our doors at least once last calendar year. And for many of them, it is just once. About 38% of the folks that we served last year came one time exactly. They're people who look just like you and me, who have jobs and houses, and their kids are in school with your kids, and then something happens. They're on a tight budget, something breaks that budget. So a car breaks down, there's a temporary job loss, there's they get sick, or they get injured, and they need a little bit of help. And then they come to see us once or twice or 3 times, and then darn it, they get their feet back under them and we don't see them again. When you add in the number of people who came 2 or 3 times, it's more than half. You know, some folks need more help. Some folks are more vulnerable populations. So you can see on the bottom, about 1 in 3 of our services were for kids. I'm going to jump ahead. So we talk about emergency food assistance, and that's definitely how we've branded ourselves. And I've heard recently a shift in that language, to talk about supplemental food assistance instead of emergency. Because when you look at that number, it's bigger than what emergencies really could constitute in this community. It's folks who need supplemental help instead of emergency help more often. So I talked about that more than half of the population that we serve came less than 3 times last calendar year. But there's a whole nother population. There are folks, you know, I used to work at Missoula Food Bank. I started there, and Bonnie was there in 2003. And I can walk through our store, and I'll see familiar faces. And in some cases, there's folks who have been relying on Missoula Food Bank every month since that time, for 12 years. And so that population has really jumped. You can see here that 23% used the food bank more than 6 times. And that's up 9% compared to 2012. Second visits, you can use the food bank twice per calendar month. That jumped by almost 25% last year. So I think part of what I want to make sure I say is that I'm really grateful that you're in the room today, because the work of Missoula Food Bank is really important. I'm proud to be a part of it, and it is not a solution to hunger and poverty in this or in any community. As we think about a new food bank and moving and building something bigger, the solution to hunger and poverty is not to go build the world's biggest food bank. The solution to hunger and poverty has to come from somewhere else, has to come from concerned citizens from all walks of life who get involved and who say, it's not okay that 1 out of every 6 people in this community relies on the food bank at least once. So thank you for being here, because by coming, you're lending your voice. It's encouraging to see so many smart folks in the room who care about this issue. I don't have a long, I should have drafted some long introduction for Bonnie, but I will say a few words. Bonnie she was a long time leader at Missoula Food Bank. She was there when I joined the team in 2003, and she was immediately my mentor, and she really helped me get my feet under me at the food bank. When she left to start the Community Food and Agriculture Coalition, I know from talking to her that it was not to get away from the food bank. It was instead to do this thing that she felt passionately about, and that let her address these similar issues from a different and in some ways more powerful viewpoint. So I'm really excited to have her here. She's an authority on local food and on hunger issues. And please help me welcome Bonnie Buckingham.
Thank you very much.
Do you know how to access your thing?
No, but I'll figure. Oh, well, here I am. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming today and to really help grapple with the issues of food insecurity, and also coming up with some solutions for how we can get to the root causes and create new systems that will better feed us individually and as a community. So our topic for today is, where does our food come from and how can it be more accessible to people? So my first question is, where does our food come from? And that maybe depends a lot on who you are, what your values are, what your income is. So you can look up here, you could shout out something. Where does our food come from? It comes from industrial CAFOs, meat markets. It might come from your neighbor's backyard. You might hunt and fish and source your own food that way. You may have your own garden or shop at one of the many local markets, farmers markets. So really we have a rather complex system that really feeds us and provides an unending supply to food if you have the money to purchase it. And for most people, cost is a really big factor in what we choose to eat. And the international industrial food system has created this complex mechanism for getting cheap food to the masses. So let's break it down a bit. Probably that's a little bit hard to read, so I'm going to go through these different columns here. This is the flow, basically, of how food from corporate large-scale farms gets to our plate. So in the far, that would be your left, growers use heavy equipment to prepare the soil and plant and maintain the crops on huge farms of single monocrops. The second column, harvesting. Farm workers, who are usually not paid well, gather the ripened crop from the field using large machinery, harvesting great quantities all at once. Transportation workers move the food by air, truck, train, ship, and barge. Transporting may happen at many steps and for many long hauls. Food processors use factory equipment to chop, grind, dry, boil, can, and freeze food to preserve it or to make it more convenient. Processed food is often greatly altered from its natural state and has many times a lot of chemicals and unwanted ingredients. In the middle there, packaging workers operate machinery to put food into cans, bags, boxes, and other containers for sale. The packaging protects the food and helps to sell it. Wholesalers sell and distribute large quantities of food to the stores. Retailers sell food to customers, usually in supermarkets, grocery stores, and other types of markets. And then people buy, prepare, and eat the food. And on the nearest column here, people discard leftover food and packaging. While most is actually recyclable or compostable, much of it actually ends up in our landfills. And at any time, in any season, we can pretty much get any food we want. And actually for pretty cheap in the United States. But is that really true? Are we really considering all of the different factors that go into our food system? What is the underlying cost? And what factors aren't we really seeing when we just stop by our local market and pick out the perfect vegetable to have later that day? Do we consider the environment and the degradation to the soil from the monocropping, the loss of the honeybees due to pesticide use, the algae blooms in the Gulf of Mexico due to the runoff from our crops? As you probably know, the average food item travels over 1,500 miles to reach our plate, and ingredients come from around the world, and usually we don't really know where that is. On the far side over here, the economics. Do we consider the economics of purchasing cheap food? While food may seem inexpensive, how are the governmental policies affecting the foods that we ate, creating extreme wealth for large corporations while keeping so many families in poverty and unable to afford food? Let's think for a moment about the food and loss of knowledge about about food and nutrition in general. In our fast-paced world, we've lost the art of cooking with natural foods and rely instead on prepared, packaged food that simply is not healthy and contains a lot of corn for the most part. And then our health. What result is that? The US obesity rates continue to rise, most prevalently among low-income people. They're trapped in a food system that provides lots of empty calories with little nutritional value at the lowest costs. While at the same time, healthy fruits and vegetables are beyond the budget of those with minimum wage jobs. And the truth is, even with this well-oiled global food machine pumping tons of cheap food into our system every day, there's still a lot of poverty, and people simply can't afford to eat every day. Oh, sorry about the change in the in how it's laid out there. But anyway, according to the statistics from the Montana Food Bank Network, 1 in 5 kids in Montana go hungry. Across the US, that equals more than 16 million kids. Last year here in Missoula, we just heard about the statistics from Aaron, 17,000 different people. And that's staggering to hear in our community where we have the moniker the Garden City, where we do grow a lot of food here. From its earliest beginnings, Missoula and the surrounding regions once grew over 90% of our food. And we not only fed Missoula, but a lot of the region around us. They had flour mills, sugar processing, apple orchards, truck farms, any kind of food that you wanted, we could grow right here. And now, about 5% of our food actually comes from our local food shed. So how do we solve these issues? We have a broken industrial food system, and we have a lot of hunger in our country. Are these two related? And if so, how can we find the solutions that are going to solve both of these problems simultaneously? And that's what I hope that we come up with today. A local food system looks a little bit different than the industrial food system. Farmers prepare soil, plant and tend crops on small farms. They grow a variety of crops, not just one. The harvesting happens from farm workers who gather the ripened crops by hand from the field, often sharing the labor amongst the different farms. Packing, farm workers put food in reusable boxes or bags to transport it. The transporting, the farmers move the food by truck or van to the farmers market, restaurant, or the local stores. In retailing, the farmers, restaurant owners, or local store owners actually sell the food directly to the customers. And then people buy, prepare, and eat the food. And then for disposing, the communities collect kitchen scraps for composting to add to farm soil. Minimal packaging means less in the landfill. So some of the same elements. They basically have the same elements, but it is much more simple and certainly a lot more sustainable for a community. And as I look around the room today, I see that here in Missoula, we are very fortunate to have a plethora of different organizations that all care about this issue. They're working collaboratively already to make all of this local food system happen. The different organizations that are up here are just a small sample. It's certainly a lot more, both independent nonprofit organizations and also public agencies that are all working together to help create a food system that's sustainable and that meets the needs of our community. So why should our food system be controlled locally? Why should we care about that? We often do a lot of campaigns around choosing local, about supporting our local economy. But there are a lot of different reasons that our food system should actually be controlled locally. For the health, it creates, as I said, not only individual health, but also creates community health. When we all are able to access food, then our community is more healthy as well. In food security, when communities manage their own food systems, they're better able to create healthy, affordable, stable supplies of food. And they're based on local needs, not corporate profits. For local economies, on the poster there it says, if just Western Montana consumers spent only 15% of their grocery budget on local food, we could generate $66 million in new farm income in this region. And that's just $4.60 a week on average that people would spend if it was 15%. So that's actually about the cost of a latte. And to be able to generate that much income would make our system that much more healthy. The environment, locally grown food typically comes from small to mid-sized sustainable farms. You can go out and visit the farms and know exactly how they're being farmed. Creating stronger ties between communities and their local food systems fosters the connection to the land and better protects nature. And one of the biggest benefits is the reduction in long-distance transport. Food grown locally uses 4 to 17 times less fuel and emits 5 to 17 times less CO2. Diversified agriculture from local farms provides environmental benefits such as reduced contributions to climate change, enhanced water quality, and a reduction in soil erosion. And then again, the community cohesion and civic engagement. Local food systems build community and develop regional identity and character. They provide more meaningful livelihoods for food and agriculture workers, and they encourage community interaction and build relationship between different farmers and eaters. So, how are we actually creating change in Missoula? First of all, in order to have a local food system, you have to have soil in which to grow your food. Missoula continues to grow at a rapid pace, and one of the main priorities of the Community Food and Agriculture Coalition is to work on policy that will conserve the remaining agricultural land that we have. And so we have been working for the past 8 years to get a policy passed that will actually go into our subdivision review plans. We have yet to see that happen, but we remain hopeful that we will be doing that. And really there has been a lot of renewed interest in the last year or so as development has begun to increase again with the upturn in the economy. And policy solutions are always important for people to be involved in. I think that taking an active part in developing policy at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level are important for us. The cottage food law was just passed in our state legislature, making it much easier for people to start small businesses in their homes. And it was a very thoughtful and specific policy so that food safety remains a top priority, but people aren't as hampered in starting small businesses and beginning to really help to grow our food system in that way. The recent policy plan called Our Missoula here in Missoula was conducted by the city of Missoula and has been almost a year now of public forums and then some smaller strategic groups working on creating policies for our growth for the next 15 to 20 years. And a lot of ag land conservation policy is there, as well as incentives for encouraging farms and backyard gardens, and encouraging people to grow their own food and providing space for them to do that, as well as grow a row for your neighbor. Farmers on the land. Garden City Harvest has been providing education to would-be farmers, beginning with farm to school and school kids, farm tours, their youth harvest, and their community gardens, as well as the farm at the Peace Farm, and providing education in that way, and really helping people to learn more about how to provide food for themselves. And CFAC recently started a program with beginning farmers and ranchers, providing workshops and networking opportunities to really help beginning farmers be successful as they start new businesses and can begin to grow food for the rest of us. Processing, storage, and delivery. The Western Montana Growers Co-op has been steadily increasing the amount of farmers growing and the internal capacity to be able to deliver that food and to store it, and working with the Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center up in Ronan to process and have food that is more easily accessible and usable by institutions such as the hospitals and UN dining and also the farm to school programs. And as more people demand and show interest in purchasing local food, it really encourages more diversity and larger quantities from the farmers, giving them a reliable market. So the university dining service has been very instrumental in helping farmers increase their capacity, knowing that they have a ready market for that. And then the consumers, and that's where everybody can take a part. You may not be a farmer, but everybody eats. And so we have the farm to school, we have farm to college, both very vital programs. Our hospitals and restaurants increasingly are looking at where they can purchase local food and have it more readily available. And the Growers Co-op has been very instrumental in helping those programs succeed. EBT and WIC programs at farmers markets and local independent grocers have also really increased the amount of food consumed from local sources. We've had a Choose Local campaign in the stores. I showed that poster a little bit earlier. A lot of the independent markets are now highlighting the food that they're getting locally, and has really created some demand for that. And then the Double Snap dollars, and I know a lot of you came to hear a little bit more about that program today at the farmers markets, the Growers Co-op, and the Missoula Food Co-op. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. The Double Snap dollars, as you may or may not know, For several years now, the EBT program has been at the farmers markets. CFAC helped to initiate the first EBT program in Montana. And what happens is people come and they swipe their SNAP or food stamp card. They're given little wooden tokens that then they can spend at the various vendors. And then at the end of the market, the vendors all turn those in and they get paid for that amount. What we decided to do, and it has been very successful, each year about $30,000 worth of federal dollars go into the farmers market, which is then circulated through our economy. So we're very excited. There have been a number of smaller markets that have applied for and now are able to provide EBT, even if they have only a few farmers at their markets. And technology has changed greatly, which helps as well. The federal government also has seen that this is a great way to increase access to healthy local food for people. And just this past year, the USDA has had at least 3 competitive grant programs that they have put out for communities to get money to support the Double SNAP program in communities. So we are sort of trying this pilot project this year, where if you spend $20, we will match $20. So far, it has, even at the very first market, there was a lot of interest, and people were very excited about it, and we were kind of reaching the cap of the money that was able to be spent. There's $500 per market per week that is allocated. We've been doing some fundraising around it and have raised several $1,000s to cover that gap for the match. And we're hoping to get some federal dollars that will actually help cover that as well. But for now, we're doing a public campaign around it and doing a little bit of research to see how people find out about it, how much is actually spent, and how successful the program will be. So the real reason that we're here today is to talk about solutions and to get some information and share some information about what you think are the best solutions. So as we are going to break into different groups here and talk a little bit, I want you to sort of imagine having access to an abundance of healthy, locally produced food, diverse varieties of delicious seasonal food at an affordable cost, farmers making a living from the land and providing food for local bakers, butchers, and grocers, and backyard gardens and small-scale farms across our valley, ensuring that all people live without hunger in Missoula County. So how can we work more closely together? What are you already doing or considering doing? What kind of policy changes do you think we need? What kind of action and advocacy should we be conducting? And what creative ideas do you have to really pull this all together and make it more successful? Thoughts?
Question, I don't know if you're going to talk more about the double your dollars, or if you're done with that, but I have a question about how it works physically. So one of the problems is with fresh food is storage and being able to consume it fast enough. So if you're doubling the dollars, do you have to spend it right then and there that day? Or, because I wouldn't, if I spent $20, I wouldn't be able to eat $40 worth of fresh produce immediately.
But you don't have to spend it's up to $20. Okay. So if you only wanted $10 worth of produce, you could use $5 from your SNAP benefit, and it would be matched $5, and you would get $10 worth of food. I'm sorry, I didn't make that very clear.
When you go up to the table, and you tell them you want to spend $10, they're only going to take $5 off of your...
Yes, they would. If you want to spend $10, then and tell them you want $5 taken from your SNAP benefit,
right,
and then you would get $10 in tokens.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you So you take out those points,
Uh-huh.
can't you spend those points the next week if you don't spend it? Is that not encouraged?
It is not encouraged. It happens,
Okay.
but it's actually one of the issues that the federal government has with food stamps being used at farmers markets is that it's supposed to, when you make a purchase, you're supposed to have your food right then. So CSAs are also a little bit of a difficulty for the SNAP project because the whole idea of a CSA is you pay early in the season or before the season even starts when they're planting, and then you get produce throughout the season. And it's very difficult to have your SNAP benefit be able to do that. You can't pay a lump sum ahead of time and then get installments. So that's one of the projects that we're working on at the Western Montana Growers Co-op. CSA is also trying this as a pilot to encourage more people to use CSAs, but having to modify their program in order to allow that to happen. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Funny, at one of our Garden City Harvest 4 farms, we offer CSAs on a sliding scale based on your income.
Uh-huh.
And then we do allow people to use SNAP benefits to pay for their CSA. They're required to pay a $25 deposit when they secure their CSA. And then each week when they go, they can pay that week's portion.
Oh, nice, okay. That's a good,
So it's possible,
Yeah.
we don't do the match, it's just, but we do a sliding scale, so the total is less. And that's-
one of the things for a nonprofit, I think that works great. For a for-profit business, not the same model, but similar structure perhaps in how to make it work, yeah. Do people have other questions about the double SNAP? Mhm.
Does the purchaser have to show proof of SNAP enrollment
They have to have a card.
so that it doesn't get transferred to someone else?
Right, yeah, and so you have to authorize it through the slider, the card reader, and it will even tell you, it's hooked into their system, so it will even tell you if they have that much in their account. If it's kind of low, and they want $10 and they only have $7 in their account, it won't let them take $10. Mhm.
For the double bucks at the co-op, will that be for any food at the co-op or just fruits and vegetables there?
At the food co-op, the store? I think that they are doing any food that isn't, any food that's local, that isn't a packaged product, because they do have some packaged products that they get rather than just local food, but it's for purchasing local food. Mhm. Any other questions? So I think we're going to take about half an hour and get into groups and kind of think about our local food system and what we might offer up as some other solutions, or what ideas you might have for how to increase access within the local food system. So is that kind of, Paige, what you were thinking of?
Yeah.
And then we'll talk, maybe about half an hour, maybe 25 minutes, and then we'll maybe share our ideas out again.